The biggest challenge that not only entrepreneurs, but the economy and the education system itself are facing right now is, what can you possibly teach a human being that machines and artificial intelligence won't figure out how to do faster or better in the next 10 to 15 years? And probably even sooner. The answer is right in front of our eyes, but is rarely talked about in either mainstream or social media. And it's exactly what we'll go over in this video, as we uncover 3 entrepreneurial success stories to illustrate some pretty unusual but highly effective tactics that will help you spot the kinds of business opportunities computers can't easily connect to just yet. And toward the end of the video, we'll talk about the one massively important ingredient that any business idea must have if you ever expect it to be leveraged by its own users, rather than by your soul energy burning out to keep it alive. First, combine something you already know with something you really love and turn it into something that you wished existed. A bored amusement park ride operator in the 70s led to a $28 million business idea, but how? You may or may not have heard about Nolan Bushnell, the founder of the 80s gaming giant, ATARI, and the father of what we know today as the electronic gaming industry. But how did it all start? Bushnell was 21 when he was learning the basics of computer graphics, while working at an amusement park and playing tournament chess in his free time. He was fascinated by the thought of combining computers, images, and fun. So he decided to put those 3 things together and created his very first video game, Computer Space, but it didn't do too well. It turns out the game's interface was too complicated for players to understand, and the game's hardware was also too costly and quite heavy for mass production. But he didn't give up. Bushnell kept working to excel at game design, and a couple of years later, he founded ATARI with $500 and the help of his friend Ted Dabney. Nolan Bushnell went on to create the famous hit games, Pong and Asteroids, and he sold ATARI to Time Warner for $28 million in 1976, but he didn't stop there. He also founded the Chuck E. Cheese pizza restaurants chain, and since then, he has founded more than 20 companies in many fields including educational software, personal computers, and robotics. Start paying attention to what people become frustrated about. A 19-year-old was teaching graphic design software tools to fellow students, and she could feel their utter frustration once they realized sometimes they would have to invest an entire semester just to remember where buttons were located. She realized this was a big problem and something needed to change, so she decided to make her contribution. Melanie Perkins is the founder of the free-to-use software Canva and one of Australia's youngest billionaires. She created her company because she believes that design should be accessible for everyone, because in our age, everybody wants to communicate something, and content creation should not be limited to some type of exclusive elite. So that's exactly what ultimately drove her and partner Cliff Obrecht to create Canva over a decade ago, and turn it into the billion-dollar business that it is today. Pay even more attention to what people won't necessarily express with words. There's no question that Steve Jobs was a mastermind when it came to innovation, and had an almost unexplainable ease for spotting business opportunities. After all, Jobs was somehow able to figure out that a significant portion of the consumer market would eventually assign a tremendous amount of value to beautiful graphics and visual aesthetics, and he did it over 30 years in advance. And to put this in context, it happened at a time when the entire computer industry was led by a single player, IBM, and qualities like creativity, liberating the mind, design, and beautiful typography weren't even talked about as important for the industry. This also happened at a point where artificial intelligence, consumer behavior data tracking, and data mining didn't exist as they do today. So how was he able to develop such capacity to envision future consumer behaviors and preferences? The answer to our question might be to start paying more attention and to empathize more with other people's problems, but more specifically, to find the solution for a problem they haven't even realized they're experiencing. For example, some people say that most of Steve Jobs' ability to spot business opportunities came from his intuition. But perhaps, it was more of a mix of both a strong sensibility to read people's cues and nonverbal language, and a strong intuition about what they might like and find useful in the future. And sometimes the people who will absolutely love to use your potential million-dollar business idea might be closer than you think. Steve Jobs loved computers, and he shared a love for beautiful aesthetics and design, all while taking a calligraphy class at Reed College back in the 70s. So he might have wondered, what if we could create something that took the power of computers to make something not just useful, but that could also instantly inspire you from the moment you looked at it? After all, he was surrounded by a bunch of people who might really like that as well, so he just went on to make it happen. And yes, that all sounds great, but why does it matter so much to empathize anyway? The reason that our capacity to connect to each other matters so much is because it may be able to support the premise that our real power as humans over machines will eventually come from connecting and understanding what other humans are feeling, but to keep doing so on a deeper level. For example, by truly relating with a story that other humans went through before they got here. Then, to process and understand that information and effectively use it to build the kinds of solutions for humans that machines won't possibly be able to figure out on their own. But that's unless, of course, we decide to teach them how. And there you have them. 3 highly effective tactics that will help you find the kinds of business opportunities that no one else is talking about, not even machines. Do you feel we missed anything? Thanks for watching this episode of Pixiebolt's Decipher, a part of the Digital Animals series. If you found this episode helpful, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more content like this.